Oh, let's talk about John MacArthur. Okay, a few weeks ago, February 19th to be specific, so during Black History Month, it turns out there is a preacher. I know some of you are familiar with him. His name is John MacArthur. He runs Grace Community Church in California. And I guess one of the things he does at his services is he does like a Q&A because he's the voice of God, and maybe someone in the congregation has a question that they need a prophet to friggin' answer. So he does Q&As during services. And someone asked him a couple weeks ago, what do you think about conservative Christian groups like the Gospel Coalition and another group called Together for the Gospel? And in case you're not familiar, the Gospel Coalition, it's a website that it's a website that posts a lot of conservative Christian stuff. They're absolutely a right-wing evangelical organization. They're anti-gay, they are anti-trans, they're anti-sex. They post some of the cringiest stuff out there. So like it has established itself as a home for like white evangelicals who are MAGA cultists, even though they don't necessarily talk about politics. So that's the Gospel Coalition. And Together for the Gospel is also an extremely conservative group that kind of runs conferences, or at least they used to. They hold conferences to talk about all this stuff. So someone asked John MacArthur, what do you think about those two groups? And first, he called the Gospel Coalition, the website, he called it woke, which, what? Like tells you how unhelpful that word is, because they just use it to trash anybody for no reason whatsoever. But I want to get to the next thing, which is when he talked about Together for the Gospel, the other organization, he trashed them because a few years ago, they decided to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 2018. And what he said to this crowd is that, like, they never should have honored MLK. Why? Because he's not a Christian at all. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., not a Christian at all, said MacArthur. And then he added that MLK was a non-believer who misrepresented everything about Christ and the gospel. And here, don't take it from me. Let me play you the clip so you can hear it for yourself.
Both of those organizations, well, T4G is basically non-existent. They bought into the deceptiveness of the woke movement and the racial baiting that was going on a couple of years ago, and it literally put them out of existence. I was thinking, a year later, they did the same thing for Martin Luther King, who was not a Christian at all, whose life was immoral. I'm not saying he didn't do some social good, and I've always been glad that he was a pacifist, or he could have started a real revolution. But you don't honor a non-believer who misrepresented everything about Christ and the gospel in an organization alongside honoring somebody like R.C. Sproul. This was a symptom of the impact of the woke movement that basically displaced that whole organization. That was really, it was over after that.
What is that? Okay. Everything he said there's so many lies in what he said there. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he wasn't perfect, but obviously his faith-based fight for social justice and civil rights, not only did he link together his religious beliefs and what he was fighting for, he wasn't alone. I mean, many Black leaders before him and since then have also used religion as justification for why they are pushing for equal rights and civil rights and voting rights. I appreciated what one pastor said in response to John MacArthur. This is from Faithfully magazine here. This is from, I need to quote, Charlie Dates of Progressive Baptist Church in Chicago. Go away, ad. I can't remove that. I don't know why. Disappear. It won't let it disappear. Sorry. But look at this top quotation. if you ain't gonna raise a finger to help us get the right to vote, to live where we want to live, to go to school where we want to go, keep Martin King's name out of your mouth. Love it. That's a great quotation. But again, like, even if Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't Christian, you would think the values that he fought for were important enough that they ought to override any of his personal foibles. But the argument doesn't even make sense on John MacArthur's own terms, because someone writing for Christianity Today, which is absolutely a conservative Christian outlet, this is what he said in response to MacArthur's thing. I spoke at that event held by Together for the Gospel. He said, I spoke at MLK 50, and I don't recall seeing any speakers who weren't unambiguously orthodox. MacArthur's accusations aren't only too lightly made, they are plainly slanderous. Like, this guy's saying, I was at that conference where they honored MLK. Everyone there was conservative Christian, and also you're lying about everything you're saying about the organization, about MLK. Like, what are you doing? So there, I mean, when Christianity Today, which is conservative, says you've gone too far, you've gone too far. I mean, to claim MLK wasn't a true Christian and therefore should not be honored by any decent conservative Christian organization, that's the sort of thing that's a right-wing talking point that used to be on the fringes, and now it's moved to like mainstream Republican talking. It's a mainstream Republican talking point these days, and now it's shifting over to the churches. Like, conservatives have spent years trying to discredit Martin Luther King. This is an article that is from earlier this year from Wired magazine, how Charlie Kirk plans to discredit MLK Jr. and the Civil Rights Act. Like, they're preparing to launch a campaign against MLK and the civil rights law he helped enact. That's from January of this year. This is something that you expect to see from crazy right-wing MAGA people, and yet it's also seeping into conservative Christian churches. Yes, some of them are pushing back right now. I do wonder how long that's going to last, where they're defending Martin Luther King. But again, the reason I think this is important is John MacArthur is not some random dude with no followers. He is a very, very powerful Christian leader. In fact, Christianity Today, this is from, I wanted to cite this correctly. This is from several years ago. Christianity Today once published a list of the 25 most influential preachers in the country. And lo and behold, who's on this list here? There's John MacArthur. I mean, by the way, who's above him? Bill Hybels, who later stepped down because of sexual aggression of some sort. But John MacArthur is powerful. He's been powerful for a long time in the conservative Christian world. So he's not a nobody. That's why it's worth taking his word seriously and pushing back against them. And I also want to point out a different lie that John MacArthur has told about Martin Luther King Jr. He previously said on multiple occasions that he was preaching in Mississippi with black church leaders on the night MLK was assassinated. And who was there alongside him? Medgar Evers' son, Charlie. Like, a real black leader's son was right there preaching alongside him. And he said, MacArthur said, literally within hours after Dr. King was assassinated, we were at the Lorraine Motel standing on the balcony where he was shot. And do you know what a lot of those black civil rights leaders, Christian leaders said about MacArthur's story, that he was there when MLK was shot? Iconic civil rights leader tells Pastor John MacArthur to stop lying. This even got attention in the Roy's Report, another Christian outlet. Is John MacArthur's story about Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination true? And you know, whenever there's a question mark in a headline, the answer is no. But like, this guy's been lying about MLK for a long time. Let me keep going. He has also argued, John MacArthur has also argued, that the curse of Ham was justification for slavery. What is the curse of Ham? Well, in the book of Genesis, Ham, the character Ham, he curses his son by saying all of your descendants are going to be slaves. And Christians in the past have used that story to justify racism against people with dark skin. It's known as the curse of Ham. You can Google that. You will find examples of it. And MacArthur has also argued that that was justification for slavery. But wait, it gets worse. Here's a video clip I'm going to show you of John MacArthur literally defending slavery. I want to repeat this. This is one of the most powerful fundamentalist Calvinist Christian preachers in the country. Here he is openly defending slavery, if it's done the way he likes it.
It is a little strange that we have such an aversion to slavery because historically there have been abuses. You know, there have been abuses in marriage. We don't have an aversion to marriage particularly because there have been abuses. So to throw out slavery as a concept simply because there have been abuses, I think, is to miss the point. In any kind of human relationship, there can be abuses. There can also be benefits. For many people, poor people, perhaps people who weren't educated, perhaps people who had no other opportunity, working for a gentle, caring, loving master was the best of all possible worlds. If you had the right master, everything was taken care of. So we have to go back and take a more honest look at slavery and understand that God has, in a sense, legitimized it when it's handled correctly. Slavery is not objectionable if you have the right master. It's the perfect scenario.
Not objectionable if you have the right master. It's the perfect scenario. Why do you guys hate slavery so much? All you need is a good slave master, and everything would be cool. Just because some people are bad at owning slaves, it ruins it for the rest of the people, just like him. So look, I'm just saying John MacArthur is a total racist. Like his criticism of MLK, when you hear other things he has said about slavery, about racism, like he's not really the spokesperson you want, and yet he is super powerful. By the way, just to run down another list of some stupid stuff he has said, he has argued that climate change is something we can ignore because, quote, God intended us to use this planet and it is a disposable planet. He openly celebrated the lack of social distancing and face masks in his congregation during the height of COVID. He once told a packed church in the middle of COVID, the good news is you're here, you're not distancing, and you're not wearing masks, as if that was a good thing. And in August of 2020, like, you know how bad things were in August of 2020 before the vaccines were available, he falsely claimed there is no pandemic. That's a quote. And by the way, that October, there was an outbreak at his church. I believe he also caught COVID during that time. He has also said, by the way, and I'm quoting here, no one is gay. Like that's just a standalone lie. So this John MacArthur, he's not a Christian preacher deserving of respect. He's a conspiracy theorist who regurgitates racist lies and tells a bunch of ignorant people stuff that he treats as facts. But he is one of the most famous pastors, preachers in the country, and he believes Black Christian preachers who promote social justice are not good Christians. I guess the question is how many other conservative Christians agree, but sadly the answer is a whole bunch of them, otherwise he wouldn't be this powerful. Gonna pause there for a bit. What else we got here? I know. There's a couple coming. I'm going to open up this next story and while I look. Fundamentalist Christians are very good at invalidating others. No kidding. They love putting down other people and raising themselves up. And if you put down other people, I mean, automatically you're better off, right? What's the next one there? No other questions right now. White Christian nationalists invalidate MLK and probably reference him as a descendant of Ham. Like, I wouldn't put it past you. That is the gist you get when you hear or you read what John MacArthur has said. And I haven't even gotten into some of the other crazy stuff he has said over the years, because there's a laundry list of horrible things this guy has said and done. What else we got? Does he believe that crazy-ish? Does he? I'm assuming you're talking about things Mormons believe. Black is the color of the children of Cain. Yeah, I think that's where he's going with when it comes to the curse of Ham. That like black skin color is a way that God punished certain people. That is something a lot of fundamentalists believe. What's sad is that he thinks bigotry spewed from the pulpit will get a free pass. Sadder still is that it will get a free pass. We'll get a pass from the congregation. I mean, yeah, that's really the scariest thing. Like during COVID, when he was at his most dangerous, like all the MLK stuff he's saying is harmful and wrong, but it's this guy saying something harmful and wrong. He's been doing that his entire career. But during COVID, he was actively putting people in harm's way, and they continued to celebrate him at the time. Like, that's when you know things are bad, when these people are willing to give up their own health to follow what this guy is doing because they think he has all the answers. The right keeps drifting farther and farther right. No kidding. I mean, just look at what's going on Twitter X, like where they're promoting just the worst conspiratorial voices, and they're all on board. It seems like there are no sane Republicans left to moderate any of those people. It is scary. We don't have to do anything except recognizing and calling out the stupidity. I agree. I mean, that's the least we can do, right? Point it out, call it out, push back against it. They're not listening to us, but we can do it for the people who might come across our way before they get to them.